Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome MCC President Mark Nicholas.
Thank you, thank you. Is that sound good? Is that working? Yeah, you got me, you've got me. Great. Thank you for that lovely, warm reception. Thank you for turning out in extraordinary numbers. We had nearly 3,000 ticket applications for tonight. An extraordinary amount of ticket applications. If you feel slightly in the wings, we apologize, and you are slightly in the wings. You do have good screens just next door to you. And we just decided we'd rather have 650 at the first Tailenders Cowdrey lecture than 550. So you're here. That is the upside. See it as the upside. If it's dreadful, move and stand somewhere on the back there, but don't stand in people's way. If you feel that you're compromised in that corner, feel free. This is a relaxed, loose evening. This evening has happened simply because of one man who had a rather genius idea. His surname is Cowdrey. That gave him a lot of collateral in this argument. He's Charlie Cowdrey, Jeremy's son, one of two sons with Rob. And Charlie said, how about we just change the evening a bit? And Jeremy, the father, said, that's a great idea. Give it a different angle, a little leg up. After 23 fabulous years of great speakers, we can still have the great speakers, but let's change the angle a bit. And he came up with the idea of the Tailenders show. He'd been to see the Tailenders live, he'd listened to the podcast, and he talked to us, and he persuaded us that it was the way to go. And that's why we're here tonight, because of Charlie Cowdrey, wherever you may be. Charlie, take a bow. Stand up, stand up. So, I've made a few notes. We have to housekeep. I have to tell you, would you believe this stuff? I have to tell you about fire exits. There's one to the right of the screen, one to the left of the screen, and two to the north side of the ground. The loos are there above the signs Lords, men's and ladies at both ends there, above the signs Lords. Please stay seated during the show. No alcohol will be served during the show. After the show, if the wine on the table isn't enough as part of your ticket, or if you want something different to drink, there will be a bar back left there that you can buy other drinks from, but please not during the show. And there's something else that I can't read, so it can't be terribly important. What we say is sit back and relax. Colin Cowdrey was a remarkable man. Lord Cowdrey of Tunbridge, christened MCC, which had to mean something, and of course did. A man that went on to become one of the greatest players that England's have ever had. One of the most elegant batsmen, gifted slip catchers, brilliant England captain, fabulous man who conceived the spirit of cricket, and then Ted Dexter joined him, and together they put together this initiative that became the preamble to the laws. So before we get underway tonight, let's have a little look back at the great Colin Cowdrey.
There's Colin Cowdrey, who has just played two superb strokes. You can see what we mean. That's got him on his wrist. 6 runs still needed, and Colin Cowdrey coming out to bat with his left wrist broken, and the point being that David Allen has got the bowling. Cowdrey resumes, 19 not out. What tactics he can be suggesting, I just don't know. Last ball now. It's a draw. It's a draw. England have played the game. 6 runs short of victory. And chaos here at all. The umpires having the stump pinched from them. I've never seen this At Lords like this, the players being chased in. They'll be lucky if they get there without losing something, even if it's only a hat or a sweater.
Ah, the master Colin Cowdrey. And there's a synergy, I think, a synergy. Because 3 of his children are here tonight. The 4th sadly isn't. He's up there watching upon us. We send him our love. But with us tonight are his son Christopher Cowdrey, who captained England, Jeremy Cowdrey, and his daughter Carol Cowdrey are all here. Please stand, the 3 of you. Thank you. Please stand. Carol, come on. There you go. And lots of Colin's grandchildren are here, but I didn't have the guts to take them on, frankly, in case I missed one out and then I was in trouble. Now, Tailenders. Tailenders started in 2017, commissioned for 7 episodes for the Ashes, but the BBC liked what they saw so much that they greenlit a regular show, which has had 22 million downloads. They travel the country with a live show as well as their podcasts. The Hammersmith Apollo, the London Palladium, and the Palace Theatre in Manchester are amongst the venues that they have conquered. They're great, great guys. Great guys. You know them. Greg James, broadcaster, famous on Radio 1, author, fabulous guy, cricket lover, good player, fabulous ambassador for the Lord's Taverners. Felix White, guitarist of the indie band, the Maccabees, which will mean something to some of you and not so much to others. Wrote a great book, actually. It was a great book. It's Always Summer Somewhere, and it covered the subject of cricket, music, and loss. So areas that we are all touched by. A tremendous read. And the 3rd tailender, Jimmy Anderson. Just the 700 Test match wickets. That's all. That's all. And then we have 2 guests of honor who are on the picture to my right, but I won't introduce because the Tailenders team will do that just a little later. So please watch a short video and then give a raucous welcome to our super guests tonight. Have a look at this. Tailenders in vision. Wonderful cricket people, Felix White, Greg James, and Jimmy Anderson.
Oh. Mark Nicholas, everybody.
Mark Nicholas, legend. Come on.
Thank you to Mark. He will be back a bit later to talk about the 2 centuries he has scored at Lords.
Good centuries, to be fair.
Yeah. Ball by ball commentary by Mark on Mark. That's what's going to happen later. Hello and welcome to the 2024 Cowdrey Lecture.
Hello and thank you for having us on the 2024 Cowdrey Lecture.
It is a complete pleasure to be asked to bring the Tailenders show to the home of cricket. As Mark said, I'm Greg James, that's Felix White, and this is England's greatest ever bowler, Jimmy Anderson.
Go on, Jim. Go on, Jim.
Our loosely cricket-based podcast was born out of a deep love for the game and is a celebration of it. And of all the work that we do, this is by far our favourite thing.
True for me.
Well, maybe for you two. I quite like playing at Lords.
Oh, for you.
Yeah, okay. For us two, it's our favourite thing we've ever done. As Mark said, we started in 2017 for the men's Ashes, and we are still going. And tonight we are following in the footsteps of some of the greats. Benno, Lara, Sangakkara. Botham, Fry, Desmond Tutu.
Oh.
And we understand what a privilege it is to be here, and we are so grateful that the Cowdrey family, particularly Charlie, I mean, let's be honest, Charlie.
Yeah, where is Charlie?
Yeah, where is Charlie?
Charlie.
I was really interested in the choice of the word that Mark Nicholas used.
Persuaded.
So, now what table are you on there, Charlie? 31. Okay. Any complaints? Table 31. If you don't like it. But over the next hour, we'll be discussing why we love this game, how we got into it, how we can protect it and make it as big and as brilliant as we know it can be, and make it for absolutely everybody. At the start of every episode, we like to do a little song.
Right, yes.
We have a theme tune to Tailenders that was suggested by a listener called Joe. And Felix, should we teach everyone how to do it?
So I've got anxiety about this. I don't know how many Tailenders are in the house tonight. Are there listeners of Tailenders in here tonight? If I know what we do. Okay, I've got less anxiety about it.
It's a home-ish crowd.
Right, so what we do when we do Tailenders live, we've got a full band and we sing Tailenders as loud as we can with a full rock band. I've got a feeling that's not going to happen tonight. So I'm going to very gently play it. Okay. And if you know the words to this song...
Well, they won't, because we just came up with new ones. So.
Oh, yeah?
Come on.
Tailenders, 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 Tailenders.
At the Cowdrey lecture.
Nice lyrics. Tailenders,
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 Tailenders at the Cowdrey lecture.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I told you it would work.
Nice lyrics.
I told you it would work. Mark mentioned it. I want to mention it again because we can't mention it enough. Jimmy, you have just done something that no fast bowler has ever done or ever will do. 700 wickets.
Come on, Jim.
And it's a special night for many, many reasons, but very special because this is where it all began 21 years ago.
That's got him. Better length, better line, perfect result. First test wicket for James Anderson.
And that is that. What a sight at the 5-wicket haul for James Anderson. He will receive the cuddle from everybody in sight because he is a star in the making. Yes! What cricket that is!
Bowling! It's an elite club, and Anderson's just joined it. Fabulous moment.
James Anderson it is for England. Top of off, they say. Bang on. He's on a roll here.
Surely the greatest seam and swing bowler England have ever produced.
James Anderson, you beauty.
James Anderson,
Come on,
beauty.
Jim. Woo!
Thoughts, feelings, being back here, watching that. Any emotion? Any emotion? This was the... this. Would you like to explain this moment?
Yeah. So we got a sort of on the... Is my mic working?
No, I don't think your mic's working, which is not great, I'd say, for a chat with Jimmy Anderson.
So while we fix that, what Jimmy's trying to explain there is this is the moment where Richard Thompson, the head of English cricket, is congratulating him on the greatest feat in bowling history. Now, he would tell us, if his mic was on, that inside, he's delighted.
And what he will say, because I know he'll say this, he can't say it at the moment because his mic's not on, but what he wants to say, I believe, is
and
that
in the photos, what he wasn't
he didn't know that that was being filmed and is absolutely furious that it was filmed and then posted for about 9 million people to see, at least, I'd say.
Oh, I don't know.
Hey,
There
there's
he
the
is.
microphone.
So what I will say is...
And please say it, because the mic's on.
So we got a message on the WhatsApp group saying the two Richards want to have a meeting in the bar or whatever it was. So chief exec and chairman of the ECB in there. I've turned up in my sliders, as you can see, joggers, cap on back to front, and then I realise it 2 seconds into his chat that it's about me, and I hate people talking about me. So
it's going to be a tough hour, guys.
And he was stood behind me as well. It was so awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, inside I am delighted.
Yeah. So
we just lost the series.
Yeah, that's
okay,
the point I was going to make actually quickly. Is that did you feel that in any way it was difficult, like taking that personal plaudits, because it has ended up 4-1, and there's a lot of pomp going around this England team at the moment, like celebrating not the outcome but the process. Did it feel like maybe you just didn't want to like revel in that feeling of like I've just done this?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jimmy Anderson.
No, I think like. So for me, like, I play cricket because, it's a team sport. I love winning games of cricket. That's why I started playing when I was a kid. That's why I still play now. And the records and stuff, they're great when they come along, but I don't spend too much time thinking about them. I want to try and win games of cricket for England. And so, yeah, sat there after a 4-1 loss. And, it's a lovely gesture, but... for me, at the minute, it's not sort of something that I'm that bothered about.
You'd have preferred to have won the series and not taken your 700th wicket. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm sure when I finish and then sit down at the end of my career, I'll be delighted with what I've achieved. But right now, I want to concentrate on, as I said, trying to win games of cricket.
Okay, so now you've mentioned 4-1. That's our opportunity to talk about it, I think.
Yeah.
So how have you processed it? And it seems like you're all having a nice time, despite it being a 4-1 loss. So how have you all sort of dealt with that, and what's the last couple of weeks been like?
Well, it's a hard place to tour. India's notoriously difficult. Not many teams go there and win. And we went there with a fairly inexperienced squad. You look at the two spinners, I think that's probably a massive positive for us. Tom Hartley and Shoaib Bashir coming and performing the way they did was incredible, having not played much first-class cricket before. So I think that experience will stand them in good stead going forward. But then you put them against India's spinners who've played many, many tests, got hundreds of wickets, so much experience, especially in those conditions, and it's always going to be difficult competing against that. We had really good moments in the series. Obviously won the first one, which I didn't play in. I played in the next 4, which we got hammered in. But I think there was so many moments where we were close to getting on top. And then, so that the last test, perfect example, I think it was the last test, we were 100 for 1 just before lunch, and then Ollie Pope got out, 100 for 2 at lunch, could have been a bit better, and then we fell away and didn't quite get the runs, or the total we wanted in that first innings. I think there were just moments like that where India, because of their experience, you can just pounce on moments like that, whereas we were maybe slightly greener to those sort of situations, and I'm sure it'll, there's so many young guys in that team that will benefit from that experience in the future. One
really interesting part of that series, Jim, actually, is that you went into a test and we played a few with one sole seamer, which hasn't been done before. And I had Tailenders maybe a week or so ago where we were asking Jimmy, of all the Jimmy Andersons, he's like David Bowie, there's been so many reinventions of him, which Jimmy Anderson would he like to be? And he said the Jimmy Anderson now, and I think he genuinely meant it, even though most sports people would say that. And it felt like, Jim, I don't know if it's like, could you have done that 15 years ago? And being just that one seamer, like it felt like all the tricks and evolutions and the different things you got, like meant that you could do that and hold up an end.
Yeah, I don't think I could have done it 15 years ago. I think I've got the skills to be able to do it now. And also I loved it because you don't have that, I mean, I don't want to speak badly of anyone who might be coming up on stage soon, but when you've got someone yapping in your ear, oh my God. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Just let me bowl, mate. So that was nice. You're out there on your own. You've got you feel that responsibility as well. You feel that responsibility that you're the sole seamer, so you've got to try and when you do get a chance to bowl, to try and make an impact, and I feel like that's something that I've really thrived on. But yeah, I love playing in India because it's so different to anywhere else you play in the world. The conditions are so different, and they differ from ground to ground as well, so you've got to really think on your feet throughout all the games.
You said that it was your favourite tour of India, which is odd thing considering the result of the series.
And you've won out there before as well.
Yeah, and how does that, what do you mean by that?
I didn't get the shits, so...
Lovely. What was the mark of a great night?
So profound.
Remember
so
that
touching.
When you wake up tomorrow, absolutely fine. Just remember that. That came from Jimmy Anderson.
Sorry, no, I just feel like we...
Enjoy the lamb.
What, thinking about Jimmy Anderson's shits?
No, sorry, I feel like we've really threw ourselves into it and tried to play the same sort of cricket we've played over the last couple of years. We're trying to be entertaining, we're trying to be positive all the time. And it's just obviously that bit more difficult to do in India. But I thought, we never at any stage got down. We never thought, we're getting hammered here. We always thought we had a chance, even when we're 2-1 down, we thought we can still turn it around and win the series. Obviously 3-1 down, we thought, sod this. No, I didn't. I just feel like we are still making strides as a team, and we've got much more to show in the coming years.
A couple of technical things, Jimmy. Firstly, from a fanish standpoint, what I thought was incredible about this series is two greats again, two fast bowlers, Bumrah and Jimmy, going at it and making fast bowling work, but in completely different ways, like Jasprit bowling in-swing Yorkers at pace, reversing it, and you at the other side of your career, moving it off the seam, getting it to work loads of different places. But what was really interesting to us is that we mined Jimmy for information on Tailenders. And having done the Australia series last summer, you were saying that you were in the winter nets, was it, with Mike Watkinson, who actually taught you how to swing the ball, and he was studying your bowling, just said, can I ask you something about your technique and how you're bowling?
Yeah, so it was a chance, actually. So he was working with, it was actually Andrew Flintoff's son in the net next to where I was bowling and just getting ready for the tour. And he said, do you mind if I just, I've spotted something if you want it. And he thought I was sort of, in my run-up, I was decelerating as I got to the crease. And obviously, as a fast bowler, you want momentum and that pace to increase as you get to the crease. So that's something that from that point on I worked really hard on when we went out to Abu Dhabi for 10 days before the India tour, did exactly that, and then just carried that on. It felt like it really did help throughout, and my pace was good throughout. I felt like I bowled as well as I have done for quite some time, so it was nice to... He was someone who, he actually taught me to swing the ball, so I'm quite thankful to him. Because it's played quite a big part in my career, that. So, but yeah, he's since moved away from Lancashire, but then that chance meeting on that day, he sort of held out an olive branch.
It's obviously a subconscious thing, but what do you think that speaks to? Because so many things must come into your game that you're not even aware of, and that idea that you're slightly decelerating means that were you maybe tense in ways you didn't know last summer, do you think?
I don't know, I just... Things can creep in. Like you think. I'm not saying you never, or you do sort of take your foot off the gas. Like as a cricketer, international cricketer, you want to constantly keep improving. So you are looking for things, but sometimes some things slip through the net. Some people don't pick up on it, and Mike obviously picked up on that one thing, which has helped me a huge amount and something I'll continue to do. But I think I love that part of the game where you find something that you work on it for a few sessions and you immediately see benefits from that. And I think that's the beauty of sport and always trying to learn.
You also talked about your... Oh dear.
That's a 701st wicket.
Yeah. It's going to be costly. It's costly. You talked on the podcast about your fitness levels, which I was very interested in hearing you talk about, that you didn't think you were maybe as fit as you should have been in the summer. And you've gone away and worked so hard at it.
Yeah,
and you felt different in India.
Yeah, when you have a bad series, though, you always look at every part of your game to try and think, where can I improve? And I just didn't feel like that was something... I've always given that the fitness side of it a lot of attention, and I didn't think I did for the lead up, especially to that summer. And if you don't go into a series in good shape, then obviously it's hard to maintain through a test series. And to be honest, 6 months off after the Ashes helped. You've got a big window there to really work hard at it, and that's what I did. And I literally am in the best shape that I've ever been in. And going into that India series, I could feel that as well. I could feel like it just wasn't taking anything out of me. I didn't feel tired at all. My speeds stayed the same throughout the day. Went to Dharamshala, which is at altitude, didn't really feel any effects from that. So I just feel like it's really paid off. And again, that's another thing where when you see benefits from something like that, it's amazing.
We saw the benefits in HD on TNT Sport, didn't we?
Good plug, yeah.
Not plugging them, we don't work for them. It was amazing to see you looking that well and looking that sort of fit and up for it as well, up for the fight still, which is incredible. Let's talk about someone else who's always up for the fight, or he was until he retired, sadly. Please welcome another legend of the game, Stuart Broad.
Yes, Stuart.
Stuart Broad, big moment.
Broady, so good to have you here. In that little montage, the 100 came up. Maybe we should just start there. Memories of your 100 at Lords. Talk us through it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite nice that my dad sat right in front of me. His highest test score was, what, 164? Yeah, it was one of those...
So what was your highest? What was
169, just sneak past it.
Is that's more, isn't it? Yeah, that's
just
fine.
yeah,
That's
more,
fine.
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
and you were a batsman, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It actually, I mean, that does feel like a bit of a lifetime ago, particularly how my batting ended up the final sort of 7 years. But to be honest, one place to do it, Lords, with the honours board and the feelings that Lords gives you as a player was pretty special. But probably one of those feats in my career that feels a little bit like it didn't happen, or shouldn't have happened.
Speaking of lifetimes ago, the Oval feels like a very long time ago, doesn't it? How have you processed that over the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably my first, well, definitely my first English winter at home since school. Proper winter. They're long, aren't they? They're long.
Welcome back to the harsh reality of life.
Yeah, I did sneak a month in South Africa in January, but it was, it's wetter than I remember at school. It just seems to rain a lot. You have plans, it's like, well, I can't go outside. But do you know what? I've loved being a fan of the team, and I think those sort of timings of I didn't get up at 4 a.m. too often, but I have got a 16-month-old daughter that got me up on the odd occasion. But it's definitely, it's amazing being a fan, but harder. I sort of got in my mind that I'd do this sort of nursery run in the car, listen to the radio, we'd lose wickets, and I'd think it's my fault. And I'd suddenly get, so by the end, like the 4th test, I'd stop listening to the radio, because I thought that me getting in the car would help us lose wickets, if that made any sense. So it's definitely much easier being a player when you have some sort of control over what's happening than being a watcher from afar, particularly being so close to the guys as I am, having played in the last test match in July. But yeah, I mean, I've got such amazing memories of the Oval. It feels a bit of a whirlwind how it finished, but that feeling like my last ever ball, taking a wicket and sort of running off, and Jimmy being the first person that I got to, and the crowd, you know, being so uplifted, and that whole day for me, as a sports person, very, very rarely do you get to take in the crowd and the atmosphere and what's going on, because you're so focused on the job in hand, like what's the next spell doing, who's the next batter, what's the game situation. And because I knew I was stopping, I gave myself that time to look around and appreciate the atmosphere and the fun people were having in the crowd. I could see little headbands in different pockets of the crowd, and so my memories of walking off a cricket field I can remember really clearly, and a lot of it, I'm sure, because Jimmy's still playing it, becomes a bit of a haze, because if you lose, you're sort of staring at the turf, you walk off, or if you're thinking about the next challenge. But because I could walk off knowing that my challenges were done, I could soak it in, and I can still feel that emotion. So I think that will stay with me for a long, long time.
Joe, it's so beautiful to hear that, because for me, that was the most supernatural day I've ever experienced watching cricket. Actually, where it'll be the same for everyone in this room, but we spent the entire time Stuart's been playing cricket for England watching you. So while you were doing all of that, you felt a retracing of your own life, and I always had quick roll call flashbacks to you getting picked with Jimmy for Hogarth and Harmison out in New Zealand, and even the lows of being hit for those sixes by you, Raj, and all those kind of things, the amount of life that we've lived with you. And that when you ran in to bowl that last over, I genuinely felt like I was watching the Stuart Broad that was 19 and the Stuart Broad in his 20s in you then. It was really unreal feeling. Did you have a sense of that as well? Was it as cinematic for you?
You ain't got a clue what that means.
Yeah.
Very true.
Did you have a nice day?
I think...
did you feel like you were in a film?
Yeah, ultimately, any time you leave something or leaving something you love, it's the hardest decision that you're ever going to have to make. But mine did feel quite a quick decision. It was started umming and ahhing around the Old Trafford Test match, and told Jimmy on the Saturday morning, I think it was. But the last day was the Monday evening, so it all felt pretty quick. But I think with the stress and the anxiety of making a big call, because it's a huge decision to say, that's it, I'm not going to play cricket at all anymore and play for England. You're giving away something that is just a dream of yours, and the change room's incredible. Playing cricket for England is heaven on earth. It's just superb. So walking away from that, knowing I could still do it and still felt like I had probably a couple more years left in me was difficult. But once I had come to that conclusion, I just felt light and free, and a bit how I mentioned earlier about soaking in the atmosphere, I could just enjoy it, because ultimately, yes, of course, wanted to win the game, but didn't have to think too far ahead. I could just enjoy bowling that ball, enjoy bowling that spell, enjoy Wokesy bowling that awesome spell after the rain break to get us back in the game, and I don't know, there's not many atmospheres I can really think back to in the sort of 15, 16 years I played that I can pinpoint, but it's so nice that the last memories I have of it, I can pinpoint it so accurately, and I can have so many moments that were special, batting with Jimmy for the last ever time, walking off the field. I mean, that picture that Jimmy actually sent me as a retirement gift, the picture of us walking onto the field with our backs in show, walking on with the Australian Guard of Honour. Those sort of pictures are hugely special, and probably the things you only appreciate when you know that you can't do it anymore.
With that in mind, when you said you felt like you had a couple of seasons left potentially, but you thought that was the right moment, what was it like watching everyone in India? And was there much communication with the team, with the squad?
Do you know what? I didn't miss the playing side watching the guys in India. It's a long tour. When you got home last week, I looked back and there was a message mid-Jan when you left. I was like, mid-January? That's mad. You've been away 12 weeks or something. So I haven't missed that side of the time away from home and the travelling and actually the playing yet. But everyone I've spoken to who has moved away from the game, there's a moment that hits every single player. So that will come. And whether that's Nottinghamshire walking out at Trent Bridge, or actually very soon, isn't it? It's 2 weeks or something. Or England at Lords. There's definitely going to be a moment where I go, wow, I don't do that anymore. I never will do that again. And I think that'll be quite emotional.
I did get a few messages from Stuart. Am I working?
I think you can hear you.
Sort of throughout the India tour, where he's like, "What's the mood in the camp like? What's the, how do you think today was good? Is that a good score in the first innings?" So
journalist now, aren't I?
He's asking me for the team the day before. He's like, "I don't think I can tell you."
So you did hear from him. So there's and from your side, did you miss Broady on a tour? Not just obviously bowling, because you might not have bothered bowling much out there, Broady, but did you miss having him there, your mate?
I can't see his face currently, so I imagine he's frowning.
Me?
No? Are you smiling?
I think I don't really want to. Yes, we missed him. No. So we've done the last couple of winters. You didn't come to Pakistan. You didn't fancy that. So we've done a couple of tours without him. I think for
the birth of my child, just to add context to that.
The time that England will miss Stuart Broad is the first test at Lord's, first test of the summer. It's what he has lived for the last 15 years. Going through those gates, setting the tone for the English summer. I just feel like if I think about the first test of an English summer, it's him for some reason. And all those moments throughout the summer where the team needs something, and it's the ball's thrown to him, and he comes up with something, particularly in an Ashes series, which we've seen many, many times. So I think that's when England will miss him the most. I'm not going to look at him as I say that.
Good. Oh, I think that deserves a round of applause. But that is. But it's a very special thing that you have shared on and off the pitch, and it's something that cricket fans aren't always treated to. This doesn't happen very often, that you get two people at the top of their game at the same time bowling in tandem. It's very special that we've all experienced that. You're clearly aware of bits of that, I suppose, and your personal friendship is also really special. What we'd like to do now is can you just grab a ball each? Because I just feel it's not such an opportunity. Good catch. Still got it.
He won't bowl with that. It's not a new one.
Change it, please. But I think just for the benefit of the big screens, it would be nice. I just want to see. We want to see something. Show us a couple of deliveries. Maybe something that you taught each other, something you learned from each other. Something. Give us something, please.
Well, to be fair, I tried to teach him for 15 years to hit this ropey bit down the middle, but he kept missing it. Every time I got the ball back, shiny side was just mashed up. Not ideal. But what the thing I think about, so like when you talk about our partnership, it's the moments where we've had a real impact on the other's performance or game. And I think back to Antigua 16, I think it was. 15 or 16.
Wasn't the last one, famously.
And
is Andrew Strauss in the house?
And
best thing that could have happened to you.
All right, try and make a serious point.
So am I.
So Broadie's always bowled an amazing leg cutter, which is basically where you run your fingers down that side of the ball and it sort of puts spin on it to take it away from a right-handed batter. And I'd always wanted to bowl it, but because of my action, I'm more naturally the other way. But I sort of tried to copy him and sort of put it into my game. And then this one game in Antigua, the pitch was really flat. And he said, try a leg cutter. So I tried it, and it came out slow and short. He's like, walk back to my mark, right, bowl it as fast as you can and as full as you can. The next ball, I did exactly that, and I think it was Dinesh Ramdin nicked it to Alistair Cook at first slip. And I just, like, that is the sort of thing that will stick with me. Like, he is just as much part of that wicket as I am. It's, and that's how we sort of evolved as cricketers, I think. We both took an interest in each other's game. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we tried to help each other through all the time.
I think in cricket you often talk about batting partnerships, don't you? Like opening batters work together and fall of a wicket, build a partnership. Whereas quite rarely do you talk about the importance of a bowling partnership together. And that doesn't mean that when you're bowling at the other end all the time. But actually, if I'm having a spell off and Jimmy's bowling, just looking how his rhythm is, how he's feeling, what length he's bowling, and we'd often talk about each other's run-ups to each other. So you have to be quite brave and honest at times and say, I think you're overstriding, or you're running too quick or too slowly, and ultimately a 6-over spell can go so quickly. If you don't share honest feedback straight away, then it's just a waste of 6 overs. So actually, we both in the last 10 years got really good at taking feedback immediately and putting it into practice. But I think why we were successful, ultimately your job as an opening bowler is to locate the top of off stump on that particular pitch quicker than the opening batter,
right,
and make breakthroughs. And obviously we're different heights and deliver from different trajectories, but we were really good at communicating. Every 3 balls we'd be talking about what we were feeling. Jimmy would always try and swing the ball early just to see if there was movement. I never felt comfortable doing that. If I tried to swing my first ball, I felt like I didn't have the control Jimmy would, so I could swing it into width or bowl too full and get driven. So I would always bowl my first 9 deliveries as a wobble seam, because I needed him to tell me it's swinging consistently, so then I could trust what was happening. So we'd always have just little technical differences throughout each spell that would grow our partnership. And we pride ourselves for a long time on not getting hit for boundaries early that could build pressure from both ends. And I think we had a lot of success with that, particularly in the last 10 years.
Jimmy often talks about...
Sorry, just quickly, one of my favourite spells was actually here against New Zealand. Broady got 7 for 40, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that we were both building pressure from both ends. Like I knew that he was on a roll that end, so I wasn't trying to take wickets necessarily from the other end. I was literally just trying to be boring and dry it up and let him just run down the hill and try and attack as much as possible. So I think that's, again, that understanding of what the other guy's trying to do.
Yeah. I was going to say, Stuart, Jimmy often talks about when he's bowling well, it's just the feel of it leaving his middle finger. Like, he'd have a sense of it just from the way it comes off, like, for that very split second. Like, you almost know before anybody else does, but you're just in rhythm and that ball's come out well. Did you have, like, ticks or clues like that when you were bowling? Obviously, the one that we observed from afar was when the knees are going up and you pick your moment type thing. I don't know if that's too broad an observation, no pun intended. But, like, what do you have giveaways for that to know you're in rhythm?
Yeah, I mean, my run-up was everything to me, because I remodeled it. Actually, I was watching, when did you break McGrath's record? 17, was it? I was at mid-on, and I was watching Jimmy running into bowl, and it was so smooth. It was incredible, honestly. It was bowling his 20th over, and it just looked so economical, and I didn't feel like that. I was a bit out of rhythm, and I decided then and then, right, I'm going to change my run-up and tweak it sort of throughout the winter of 18, put it into place for the start of 2019. And Dad actually played a lot of cricket with Richard Hadley, famous New Zealand bowler, and got me his email address, and I emailed him because he had changed his run-up at 30 from very long to shorter. And honestly, the detail this guy sent me on bowling, it's just beautiful. I sometimes go back and read it. It's like 3 A4 pages of email of why he changed, the technical, the mental side of it, what I should look for. And it took me 3 or 4 months to implement and work on. But it elongated my career without a doubt, because it was all about shortening my run-up stride to get my knees pumping up instead of out, that I would be then balanced at the crease to get taller. And that was probably, when I did a bit of running technique that Jimmy actually led in the team a little bit, because bowling's a funny thing. You can watch someone run in a straight line, and it's beautiful. You put a cricket ball in their hand, and their whole technique changes completely. So I did quite a bit of that. And any advice to young bowlers, I would say, would be, really focus on the balance and tempo of your run-up. It's not a sprint; it's a controlled tempo. And Jimmy's 41. Had it gone higher. Even now, he's talking about the importance of his run-up in India and how his momentum's gathering.
Sure.
So that, for me, everyone, you can talk about wrist and positioning at the crease, but if you don't get the start and the build-up of your run-up and the tempo right, you're going to be unbalanced at the business end.
These nuances and this technicality, these are just a few of the reasons why we love Test cricket so much, and that's why everyone in this room loves Test cricket. I want to just ask you, Broady, where does Test cricket go? and how do we make sure it remains as a very important part of the game that we love?
Yeah, there's still a huge hunger for Test match cricket, and particularly in England, Australia, India. But having spent a month in South Africa, the energy for Test match cricket is very high, and I'm not just talking of a certain generation. I don't buy into this. Kids don't like Test cricket or don't like watching Test cricket. They might not watch 90 overs a day, but I don't. I love that feeling of having it on the radio or the TV. You nip off, you make a cup of tea, you come back, 8 overs have gone, you catch up, and it's just a rhythm of it being around. It's like someone's keeping you company. That's how I view Test match cricket. And I'd say the best day of my winter was in Cape Town. I had an early flight from Joburg into Cape Town, landed at 8 o'clock. England were playing India in Hyderabad. I think the Windies were playing Australia at the Gabba. And the energy of people talking about it and my interest in the 2 Test matches going on at the same time, be like, West Indies got a wicket, who's out? Oh my, Shamar Joe's got another one, and then bang up, it's turning at Hyderabad, and that sort of lit a bit of a fuse in my mind of this works. It works having 2 Test matches, maybe 3 Test matches going on at the same time in different parts of the world. That builds the conversation, it builds the interest in it, and it keeps your interest in the worldwide game as well. I think we all bought into the emotion of the West Indies beating Australia at the Gabba, maybe because we're English, I don't know, but
yes.
I think there's potential for a window of Test match cricket, whether that's Boxing Day and the New Year Test in different parts of the world, or whether it's in the UK at different times. But for me as a fan, I just loved that feeling of being able to flick channels, check the score of different games going on at the same time. And ultimately, there's an imbalance, isn't there? If England are playing 15 tests a year and other nations are playing 2 or 3, and the Test Championship all looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Yeah. With the amount of games. But I wonder if there's a window opportunity where players and teams could sort of separate their schedule and play, because ultimately, having just retired from the game, but Jimmy's still in the game, been around a lot of younger players, the hunger's there for Test cricket. It is the format that just fills your heart with joy, and that still is the same for younger players.
I feel like, mentioning the Gabba is a nice way to bring on our next very special guest. I think it's time for another international cricketer. Please welcome Isha Guha.
Go on, Isha.
Shall I go there?
Isha!
Hi.
Isha! Yes, Isha.
A Tailenders regular, when we can get you. My God, you're busy, Isha, all year round. It's no mean feat, but I think it's underappreciated that you are out in Australia fronting that coverage. You must love doing that.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think we're all pretty busy, aren't we, on these benches? But as someone who played for England, loves watching England play, it's wonderful watching Australia dominate every single season.
Oh, God.
It's really amazing.
Take us to the Gabba, though, because as Broady was talking about, that was an extraordinary victory by the West Indies.
It was, and look, there was so much hope when England came over a couple of years ago. We don't need to remind everyone what happened there. Broad still don't know why you weren't picked. But it's a place that has kind of become a bit of an issue for Australia, and I think everyone started that season thinking Pakistan, West Indies coming over, a lot of touring teams coming to Australia. You kind of expect that it's going to be a challenge, and certainly for those 2 teams, you thought that Australia would just run away with it. So for the West Indies to do what they did, Shamar Joseph, an absolute revelation. I can't remember a better debut. for him the game before, and then just the way he just kept coming and he kept fighting, and what it did for West Indies cricket is just unimaginable, really. When you think of all of us in this room and everyone around the world who wants to see a thriving West Indies cricket team after their domination in the 80s and the early 90s, it was a really emotional moment, and I was down on ground when they eventually took that last wicket. Shamar Joseph was 7 for, and they were running around the ground, and literally everywhere you turned, people had tears streaming down their face. Yeah. And that wasn't just West Indies cricketers. Carl Hooper was there, and you could just see what it meant to them. You would have seen the commentary of Brian Lara, and I've never heard him so animated. It was incredible. So yeah, that was a
beautiful moment
fun
of that team, that '97 team, were in the commentary box, and it was meant to be, wasn't it?
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah.
So you get to watch some of the most incredible cricketers in the world. You follow them around the world, essentially. Give us your pick from the winter.
Shamar Joseph right up there. I mean, you look at the Australian team at the moment, men and women, and it's hard to pick one because they're all so good. It's hard to look past the captain, Pat Cummins. Pretty much everything he touches turns to gold. Every decision he makes, and just what he does with the ball, it's pretty incredible. So he's probably up there.
Hard to look past Elise Perry, maybe?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Elise Perry. She's arguably one of the greatest that's ever been, not just in the women's game, in the men's game as well. Just, I think when you look at what she brings to the table, you talk about longevity of these two players, but for her to be able to start as a 16-year-old. And I was a big supporter of her early days. I mean, I let her hit me for 260 around the MCG.
You liked her early work.
In her debut game.
Yeah. I've actually seen that on TV, isn't it?
Welcome to international cricket, Elise. No, she's done some tremendous things for women's cricket. But you look at her as a cricketer, and that winning mentality that she brings to the table. She's always up for the fight in the big games. You just watch the campaign that Royal Challengers just had. She was player of the match in the last 3 matches to help them to lift in the trophy. So she is all time. And what I love about her as well is that she always has time for everyone else as well. So you always see her signing autographs post-match, and the inspiration that she's brought to the table for young girls, but also young boys, is phenomenal.
Lots of progress in the women's game in the last few years. Big Bash, Women's IPL, 100, central contracts and all the rest of it. It's good. Taken a while though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm always pretty philosophical about it. I mean, in the long history of humans on Earth, 200 years to recognise that women can play cricket is actually pretty good. So,
well done, everyone.
There's no question. Like it's just gone to another level, and we always knew with the Women's Premier League, as soon as you unlocked women's cricket in India, it would just fly, and that's what we're seeing. Commercialism in the game now is an all-time high. Sponsors want to get involved. The 100's done a tremendous amount for the women's game in terms of scale and visibility, and it's thriving at the moment. And it's just it's great to see. I mean, I don't think 20 years ago I would have imagined it to be where it is right now, which is great. Talk about it as a journey. There's still so much to do. Especially at grassroots level, domestically, globally, to make sure that the top teams aren't pulling away from the pack. So it's up to all of us to make sure that transition is managed well. And there are still so many barriers for young women as well in the game. So it's important that we acknowledge that and learn from it and try and be better.
Just quickly on the 100 aspects, Isha, like what was really interesting to me in the last couple of years, especially with the women's games in the afternoon first, is that for decades I've been going into the outside world, outside of cricket, and telling people what a great game cricket is, and then trying to bring them into cricket matches here or Friday night at the Oval, and having moments where I feel a little bit like half embarrassed because it's a stag do for 20,000 people, or like the thing that I've described isn't necessarily the thing that they're seeing. And what I thought was really beautiful about the women's games, especially in the 100, was that the thing that I was telling them about was the essence of it was inside those games. And I don't know if anyone necessarily expected that, but because maybe they were earlier games, everyone felt they were locked in a different way. But because of the different people, younger women in there and that kind of thing, you felt like you were really watching the future, what the future of cricket might be, and something that we could all be really proud of. It was just a different feeling in there, wasn't it? And I was sort of not making that up just as spiel, like it really did feel like that.
Yeah. It's a sort of environment where you don't feel like you're at the darts. It's more like a family afternoon being spent watching the women's game, and it does bring in a different audience, and that's what we're trying to do in cricket. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work in different sports, and they look at cricket and they're envious of cricket's ability to appeal to the masses in different ways, and we often berate ourselves for the million different formats that we have, but actually it's good for the game. And it's hard for the players because they can't play all the formats consistently, but I think I'd like to say we're in a good spot in that respect.
So what you're saying is throw enough formats at the wall, something will stick. That's what we're saying. Yeah. It's a bit on the subject of what Fee was talking about. I took my niece to go and see one of the T20s in the summer, one of the women's T20s, and I saw the moment that she got it. And it's a ground. I've been to the Oval since we were about 8. We've been going to the Oval, and I saw her through her eyes. She went, "Oh, I get it. I really like it." So, was there a moment for you when you saw some cricket or you played some cricket where you thought, "Oh, I love this. This is a thing that I can do that I love"?
A great question.
I think for me it was getting out the boys. That was probably my favourite moment early on. But on a serious note, it gave me a lot of confidence. So as a youngster, as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, you're growing up in an environment where you're just trying to fit in, and to be the only one in that environment doing well, I think does give you confidence to be able to take that into school and beyond. So someone asked me the other day, how do you do it in a male-dominated environment in broadcast? And I said to them, I've been used to it from an early age, so I actually enjoy that. I enjoy being the only one sometimes, because you want to prove that you're not the only one, if you know what I mean. But it's obviously changed drastically now, and there are way more opportunities for women, and it's great to have that support network around you. I watch cricket now, and it feels weird not to have a female voice. And watching the Women's World Cup, there are so many new voices that I'm hearing. It's really refreshing to hear. So. That's all we want. We want it to be normalised. Just
quickly, from a broadcasting perspective, Ishant, whenever I see you on TV or hear you on the radio, I have the feeling of when I used to be a teenager and someone great wasn't like, "Oh, we're in really safe hands here. I feel at home, and this is just flowing through me." Like Stuart says, when you're watching Test cricket and it's in the peripherals, your voice has become actually synonymous with that. I don't know, how aware of that are you globally as well? Here in Australia and all over the place?
It's weird because I hate my voice.
Really?
Yeah. Oh.
What? Why have you chosen to do what you do?
It just happened. I fell into it, and someone played. I think Adam's here. BBC Test Match Special. Adam Outford, legend. He gave me an early opportunity with the BBC, by the way, and one of the kind of pioneers of getting more women involved. Someone played me a clip of me 12 years ago, and I sounded like a mouse. It was just, it was awful. And they sometimes at the grounds, they they play back highlights, and
Yeah.
it's so off-putting hearing my voice back. But yeah, I never thought I could be a commentator, and I really had to kind of learn pitch, and people would say, "Oh, women's voice, it's really shrieky," and so I've had to learn what works for me, and I'm still not obviously happy with it, but you're just constantly trying to improve as you go.
You do a lot of work you blaze a trail by being you in the sport, but you do a lot of work with Take Her Lead, which is an amazing charity you've started. I'd like you to tell everyone a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of amazing charities in cricket, and what I wanted to do was do something in my mum's honour. So we lost her in 2019, and she was really big on, she used to call it forwarding people, so mentoring kids in the community to get out of their comfort zones and just build confidence in different environments. And what I looked at in cricket was there was still a disconnect between the communities and the pathway, and especially for young girls. So it was really about dropping down and listening to their experiences, barriers they still face. What was really surprising was that the barriers they face now, we faced 20 years ago. So still a lot of work to be done. But yeah, Take a Lead was formed to basically advance equity and diversity in cricket and to increase participation for women and girls. It's very broad, but a lot of what we do is around mentoring. So we have player champions who work with communities and young girls, and hopefully through those experiences they build a trust to then be able to come into the pathway and really just create a better environment for girls wherever they're involved, because girls come to the sport for many different reasons, more so than boys, I'd say. Sometimes they just want to be with their mates and not be competitive, so it's about creating a space where they can feel like they can be themselves.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the challenges facing the game, and in particular places where cricket is not able to be played at the minute. I'm talking about Afghanistan. What are your thoughts on what's happening there at the moment?
It's a really difficult topic, and I think a lot of people don't know what to think about it or how to view it. And because the Constitution has been overlooked or ignored, national governing bodies are having to make their own decision about what the right thing to do is. I look at it in terms of those that have been oppressed. So imagine yourself waking up and you've lost all basic human rights. The idea of playing cricket is gone, and that was something that gave you hope. You've had to burn your kit and your training kit because you don't know what's going to happen to you or your family. You're fleeing the country not knowing if you'll ever see your friends or family ever again. And while these women support the men's team and they understand the hope it creates for the country, it's a damning reminder of the stark reality that they face in that the world has turned their back on them. And that's hard to see. And I think the game can probably do more to try and support these women and to stand up against gender oppression. And yeah, that's probably what I think of it.
It's great having you here, Isha. We love having you on this podcast, and thanks for being here at the Cowdrey lecture. This is proper, isn't it? Should we look ahead to the summer? Because this is the time of year when we can start picking our fantasy draft team for the county championship.
Oh yeah, don't get that started. Still not over that.
And we have an amazing summer ahead. Jimmy, what are your preparations the next couple of months? Obviously, bit of golf there, here and then will we be seeing you playing for Lancashire?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. The tests are quite late this year, July, I think the test matches are, so I might not be involved early season, but sort of, it's really difficult when, obviously I want to play for Lancashire, but you've got to keep in mind as a century contracted player that you're preparing for that test series, so it'll probably be towards end of May, June, where I start playing again.
Jim, what are you looking to achieve now? 800 test wickets? Or 200 tests?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't, honestly, I don't set goals or anything like that.
I know, but what's the thing we're all going to ask you about now every single day for the next few years?
Ashes?
Yeah.
I don't know, you'll find something, you always do.
Yeah, well.
I think now's a nice moment to bring back one of the voices we grew up listening to.
I would love to do that.
Talking us through some of the great test matches. Let's welcome back to the stage Mark Nicholas.
You're like, yes, Mark.
Warning.
Yeah, Warney.
Shane Warne.
Well, President and Chairman. Both.
No, not Chairman yet. There's a long way to go. Don't get overexcited.
Do you pick the Chairman?
No.
No.
Oh, great. Thanks for this intro.
Mark. How do you feel, as someone who loves this game so much and has done for so long, how do you feel as we're getting into the pre-season part of it?
Well, I love that. I love the pre-season. I mean, the old cliche about the smell of freshly mown grass applies to all of us who love the game. I think it always feels a long wait for the English summer to start. And I strolled across the field, because I can do that now. This afternoon with Jamie Cox, the head of cricket, and we looked at the pitches and hoped for more pace in them, as the boys would, I'm sure, and we were excited by the start of summer. I mean, I don't think, you can't not be excited, and we almost had a spring day today, so that was a proper bonus. I came here first to play cricket. I came here to watch cricket earlier, but I came here first to play cricket, the Easter coaching classes when I was 11 years old, and it was entirely because of a man who's in the room, and I haven't been able to say hello to him, but sitting in a wheelchair, but no less active in his life because of it, is Sir Oliver Popplewell, whose son Nigel Popplewell I grew up with, playing cricket in their garden, and he's here tonight. And he bought, after my father died, he fixed up for me to have Easter coaching classes at Lord's. Thank you, Oliver.
No way.
So Mark, that's where your love of cricket started.
Started
to develop.
No, it started with my dad, who died when I was 10. But yeah, I mean, I won't bore everybody with that because, you play we played in the street in our house in Shepherd's Bush, just outside. We chalk stumps on the brick wall. There weren't so many cars on the road then, and they were Morris Miners, most of them, I remember. But and then we moved to Roehampton and played in the garden. And I came to the NatWest final here, and we went home and replicated all the players. Ted Dexter was my first hero, John Snow, and that thing with your father where you replicate the great players and have that interaction. And I'm sure Chris and Jay, all the Cowdreys will feel this through the way that the family have centered their love of the game. You never lose that. That is what forms you, and if you like, creates your spirit around the sport you fall in love with. It's spirit for you and vice versa. You kind of wrap your arms around each other, the sport and you. And in our case, it's been with us all our lives. And we've ended up, as Broadie's doing a great job, starting broadcasting Easters par excellence. Jimmy is not bad. But Jimmy is bloody good. I've worked on radio with Jimmy, and you see he can take you to places others can't, areas of analysis. And people don't focus enough on their great skill. What's the great skill of broadcasting? Giving the viewer or the audience something they haven't got. And Jimmy could do that. If you're on air with Jimmy, get him to talk about bowling. What's the art? And that lovely thing where he talked about the leg cutter that Broadie taught him, that's perhaps the moment of the night for me, because it takes us into a world that we don't otherwise know.
Jimmy, how did you get into that world that now nobody else knows about? Your world as a bowler. What was the first moment, and why do you still love it?
Well, I wasn't always a bowler. Like when I started growing up, when I first got introduced to the game, I loved it from the start, but I was a fielder. Genuine. I loved fielding at square leg and diving around, getting grass stains on my whites. My mum hated it, but trying to take diving catches and stops and getting run-outs and stuff like that, because I was pretty average at both batting and bowling. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I actually started getting better at bowling and thought that actually I could do something with it. But I think that that's something that not a lot of people have, especially who play professional cricket. They don't love fielding, and I think that is something, one of the reasons I'm still going is because I absolutely love it. I love chasing the ball to boundary. I love trying to claw it back in at the last minute and save 4 runs or take a diving catch. I absolutely love that. I think it's
you don't
one
always
of the best
look
things to do.
like you absolutely love it. Is it inside?
Inside.
Well,
from the soul.
Where do you go from here? And what's pushing you on to keep going? As Felix was saying, where do we go next on the Jimmy Anderson journey?
I don't know. I've gone way past where I thought I would get to, or achieve more than I ever thought I would. But I still love the game, and I feel like if I'm good enough to play for England, then I'll keep trying to push for a spot in that England team. If it's not England, then it's Lancashire. If it's not Lancashire, then it's Burnley. I will try and play cricket as long as possible because I absolutely love it. I love the nuance in the game, the little skills like we talked about, the leg cutter. Swinging the ball for me is one of the... I don't want to say it turns me on, but...
It's all right. It's all right. I called you.
What time is it?
I called you a beauty earlier, so it's fine.
But honestly, when the ball comes out of the hand and you know it's come out perfectly, and it's gonna go one way or the other.
Do you want it?
No.
Do you want a moment?
No, I'm good. But for me, that is something that I think that I will continue to do when I'm 70 because I love just seeing how that
70, wow.
ball moves.
Love it, yeah.
If I get there.
Yeah. We're now, it's sort of annoying because we're now going to watch you bowling in a very different way now, with you being aroused every time you take a wicket. Anyway, Broadie, does cricket turn you on?
Wasn't expecting that question.
We weren't expecting his answer.
I wasn't.
This is the place, to be honest, is the Cowdrey lecture.
For me, like, my love for cricket grew in a unique circumstance. My dad played for England and won one of the series in the Ashes 86, 87 when I was 4 months old. And for me, I had a playground of being Trent Bridge. It was, I think, one thing that's quite unique about cricket clubs in your leagues and Nottinghamshire for me was as soon as I walked in the gates, Dad or Mum could leave me. The stewards knew I was in, and they wouldn't let me out, and I could just roam. I'd play cricket under the old scoreboard, float around, nip in for tea, come back out, play on the outfield, and my love for cricket was probably in my blood through my family, but also just that feeling of bowling, hitting a ball, taking a catch is something that lives inside of you. And when you talk about wanting kids to get into the game and play the game, get them to catch a ball, get them to hit a six, get them the feeling of taking a wicket, and that's something that grew with me from a really young age. And I think once you get that feeling, it becomes quite addictive, and you want it more, and you want to play. And one thing that Baz, as head coach of England, has come in and said, try and take yourself back to being a little kid. And on a Saturday morning, what was the first thing you do? You run to your curtains, open them, and pray for a blue sky because you wanted to play cricket. And sometimes, you know, when you're playing the professional game, you can get sort of, you know, knocked off the road, and sometimes you don't mind a bit of rain. But Baz had brought that back into the energy of the change room. Take yourself back to that feeling in your stomach when it was a blue sky in the summer and you could play cricket. And you know, I had that from being a young kid through unique circumstances that my dad played for England. But you know, I loved every minute. And now as a fan, I love watching it. I just love that feeling of tuning in, seeing wickets fall, and you know, great cricket played.
Isha, do you ever have the desire to still play? Do you play? When was the last time you played?
A long time ago. Yeah. I think I've played twice since I retired.
How did it go? How'd you go?
It was painful. Oh. I think one of those times was with you.
Oh, the Tailenders TMS thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember it, which means it didn't go that way.
No, you got Pfeiffer.
I don't bring that. That wasn't why I was teeing it up. But how do you, in your role that you have now, how do you see the game developing, and how do you feel like you're going to control people, you know, falling in love with it? What's your role in that?
I think, like all of us that are in broadcast, it's actually pretty cool. You have the opportunity to bring the viewers something in a completely different way, and I obviously love test coverage. I love what that does. I love the innovations, and I love being able to bring the viewer closer to what's happening in the middle. And in Australia, it's actually pretty cool because you get to speak to the players during the game. So that's a new kind of innovation that's never been done before. With the 100, being able to work with the BBC on something completely fresh and new and exciting, that's what I love about it. You know, I love being part of a team playing, and now I'm part of a team in broadcast. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of how I've been able to move on.
Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, Mark, as the president of the MCC, why do you still want to do it? Why did you want to do that role, and what do you feel like you can give to this?
The role as president or the broadcasting?
Well, both, I guess. You do both. You can do both brilliantly. But why do you still want to do it? Why do you still want to be in the game?
Well, it's a great game. You know, I wrote a book and I called it A Beautiful Game. It's a beautiful game to watch. It's a people game. It's a community. There are good people in cricket. Really, I wouldn't have met more than 2 or 3 bad people in my whole life in cricket. There are some difficult people, but not bad people. And I think it's a uniting force. And I think, you know, I'm wearing the Chance to Shine tie tonight, which I'm enormously proud of because of its ability to unite children and give them hope. The thrill of cricket won't ever leave me, whatever role it is that I play. It's sort of in me, as I said a moment ago. That spirit is inside me. And so you talked about the start of summer. That's quite right. I mean, the start of summer is exciting because it's in all of our spirits, and we can't wait for the first game and the first performances, and we'll love it when he knocks off stump out and when someone else smacks it through extra cover. You know, we'll love it again, just like we did last summer. It won't change much. The formats don't matter. Don't get carried away. It's a game of bat and ball. If the pitch is good and the contest between bat and ball is even, it'll be a joy to watch. It's really not that much more complicated.
The perfect place to finish. Mark, thank you.
Have you finished?
Thank you so much to Stuart Broad, Isha Guha, Jimmy Anderson, and Mark Nicholas. Thank you, Fee.
Thank you. Just a moment. Thank you to Felix. Just a moment. Thank you to Felix and to Greg, everybody. What a job they did. And once we had got Tailenders to agree, I wanted one man to be here tonight, someone I admire greatly, and he said yes immediately. So a second thank you to Stuart Broad. So now, lamb pie and dessert and friends and fun and a great club night for MCC. That bar's open. Wine will come to your tables. Bless you all for being here. Thank you.